This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, I have to say. And last year when I organised the National Grief Awareness Week, I organised the Light Up in Yellow campaign, which is on Wednesday, the 8th of December. And this year I felt like I wanted to bring something different to the table. And as you know, the work I do, which is supporting people with grief, I thought, well, what about these conversations around grief? Everybody has their own personal story. They have their own experience, some good, some less good. And when I reached out, you very kindly said you'd come on board. And I'm extremely grateful. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Okay, so what I did is I sent you a few sort of topic points that maybe we could discuss in this conversation around grief. And you very kindly came back with quite a few. And one of them at the top that really speaks very loudly to me is the importance of saying their name. Mm-hmm. So when somebody close to us has died, most of us may assume that that person's name, you know, mum, dad, son, daughter, their names, is actually referred to quite regularly, but actually in a lot of cases that isn't so. And
almost
yes, and I think maybe more so when the loss is the death of a baby or a child. I think maybe that's magnified, I think.
Definitely,
so,
yeah.
Could you elaborate on that? And please just say as much or as little as you wish to. But if there's anything you'd like to share on that, I would be really grateful.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. When so my loss and the main reason I came to you initially as a client was to do with the loss of my baby, Reuben. And one of the big things that I feel I almost need to fight for is for his name, and to say his name on a daily basis, really, well, more than a daily basis, you know, because he is a huge part of my life and the boy that made me a mum. So for me, he is my life. And it's difficult because unlike with other losses where other people have memories of that person, when it comes to a baby, it's just you and your partner or husband, and everybody else just viewed that from an outside perspective. They were part of your pregnancy or your journey before you had your baby, but they don't have any memories there to share. And I think that's the problem. They haven't got anything tangible or a memory to support with you. And that's really hard, because where does the conversation start if that's the case? So quite often it is down to us as parents to shout their name and say it and bring them into conversation. And that's really sad, because it almost makes us feel like we're the only person remembering our baby. And I know that's not true. When I speak to my family or friends who have, you know, they acknowledge that certain times of the year might be difficult, but they don't initiate that conversation to say his name or a message on Mother's Day or his birthday to say thinking of you today. And not only that, I've noticed when I have conversations with people, and I did it just yesterday, and I mention Reuben's name or refer to my pregnancy or my delivery or anything like that with him, and they almost take a step back because it makes them feel uncomfortable, because they go, it's the reminder, oh, your baby died. Yes. And that which again comes back to me and makes me feel even more uncomfortable, because I feel like, oh, I've made this awkward. But actually it's so important, because I want people to not remember my pain and not remember, oh, that's the lady whose baby died and I should tread carefully, or remember. I just want them to remember that there was this special boy who changed my life and my family's life. And, you know, now I've got 2 other little people and I'm really blessed to have them. But he's an integral part of their lives.
Of course.
And I mention his name to them all day, every day, you know, and always will do. So saying their name just reminds me that he's a person and should be here and sadly isn't. Yeah.
Beautifully
It's a weird,
said.
it's
It
really
is a
hard.
weird, it is very weird. And also what you just explained there, Sarah, about only maybe yesterday talking to somebody and you sense this awkwardness again. And what that does is it makes you feel even more awkward or nervous about telling your emotional truth. And I know that you know I talk a lot about emotional truth. And isn't that sad? Because you felt brave enough or safe enough to be vulnerable with that person, to mention the name, his name, Reuben's name, and for the reaction to be what it is. It's because so many people feel so awkward around sadness and grief. But actually, if they're there with us and they're walking at our side, you know, all the time, and they're there to listen, actually those awkward conversations really don't happen.
Yeah, and I think most people think that when I say his name or talk about him, that perhaps it is out of sadness, or an empty feeling, or just missing him. But actually, when I was talking about him yesterday, for example, and quite often, it's a happy memory, or it's not out of sadness, because my loss of him, I've not accepted, but I know I can't change it, and it is part of my life, and it's changed who I am, and good things have come from it, but it's not always out of sadness.
No.
There's some beautiful memories. When I talk about being pregnant with him, of course, there's beautiful memories. So when I talk about pregnancy to other women, I mentioned 3 pregnancies because I have had 3 babies.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's a problem. People automatically assume when you talk about losing somebody or grief that, oh, that's sad. And actually, yes, it is sad, but what about the nice memories we have of them?
Yeah,
and what
absolutely.
Even though with baby loss, again, they're just so far and few between, and that, I think that's the difficulty with other people. They haven't got those memories or that relationship.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, I suppose that makes the grief on an external point of view, rather than you and Pete, maybe more difficult, because they can't be saying, "Oh, do you remember when?" But they could around your pregnancy. But most children, if we're lucky, we have all sorts of memories. You know, we talked about in the program, didn't we, about hopes, dreams, and expectations. So all those things where they would be able to relate to or refer, and they can't do that. But I still think it's really important to say their name.
Yes, and actually the hopes, dreams, and expectations, for me, I love it when somebody remembers something, or when we're having a conversation, and now especially is a really difficult time of year for me. I've just had Jacob's birthday, so that's a reminder of not having a chance to celebrate another baby, and then the run up to Christmas, and there's all sorts of emotions going on. And what I want or would love is people to think about Reuben and who he could have been, and just mention it in conversation. Oh, would he be doing this, or would he, you know, when Jacob's playing with the tractor or something, would Reuben do this? And share their hopes and dreams with me, because actually there's 2 siblings there that can give an insight into who he would have been as well, and that's really lovely. So bring him into our lives and share our hopes and dreams, because they have dreams and I had hopes.
Of course,
we just see them being fulfilled, and that is the sad thing. But we can talk about them still.
We can, and this leads me nicely onto a quote. There's a lady called Elizabeth Edwards, and there may be a lot of people watching or listening that have heard this quote, and I've heard it before. And I've heard it where it doesn't necessarily specifically say a child, it says somebody you love. But this quote I found has her name attached, and it says this: if you know someone who's lost a child and you're afraid to mention them because you think you might make them sad by reminding them that they died, you're not reminding them they didn't forget they died. What you're reminding them of is that you remembered that they lived. And that is a great gift.
Yeah.
And I can see it resonates.
Yeah, when somebody mentions Reuben's name or acknowledges that I've been pregnant 3 times, any of those things, it does, you are grateful because you don't have to explain to them your feelings, because they've actually remembered and made a point of it, but they've also acknowledged that loss is important and that they're not going to forget it as well. And it comes from all sorts of different points of view as well, like medical professionals who don't want to mention it when you then go and are pregnant again. They don't want to mention it, and you think, well, please do. and family and friends, and you just think, no, please do mention him, and please, because I haven't, of course I'm not going to forget. And it just means that by not mentioning him or not acknowledging him or being awkward in conversation when I might mention him, always just makes me not want to speak to that person again.
Exactly. And I'm really grateful that you're saying this, because again, there may be so many people who are listening or watching to this who tragically have had a similar experience to yourself and to Pete. And I'm sure they're sort of, shouting at the screen or going, yes, 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 that's us, that's me. And I think it just needs to be talked about. It really does. And I think with baby/child loss, it is so pushed under the carpet by so many people, not by the person who struggled and suffered, not at all, but because it's the incomprehensible. People tend to feel awkward, therefore they say nothing, and actually that's worse.
Yeah, because then I feel like the elephant in the room.
Exactly. And it makes you feel worse.
And like I should remove myself so that I'm not the one making things awkward. My grief becomes bigger and bigger just to make other people feel that little bit more comfortable. And
so, do you remember me talking about emotional truth? And sort of saying, you sort of, it's a big thing. We need, all of us need to say, I'm not happy with that. I don't like it when you say that. Please, can you listen? I want to say something. Because if you don't, you've just hit the nail on the head. If you don't tell people how you're really feeling, and you do feel like the elephant in the room, that just makes your grief or your feelings around being isolated even worse. Even worse. And that has a massive knock-on effect to your health, your mental health and your physical health. So we definitely go with say their name.
Oh yes, completely.
Okay, thank you for that. One of the other things that you've mentioned is rituals or acts of remembrance. So would you like to elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, I think for me, Reuben will be a massive part of my life. That's it. And but also I want him to continue to be a part of my life, and for that reason I choose to celebrate his birthday, remember the day he died. I choose to involve my children in those celebrations and other people if they wish to be involved in those celebrations.
Yes.
It means that every Christmas I write a Christmas card to Reuben.
Oh wow.
Which just made me think, oh, I've got to do that soon. Jacob's birthday, it was his 2nd birthday last week, and there's a card, and in that card there's a little note from his big brother and a little note from his little sister. So
gosh, that's so beautiful, Sarah.
I want them to be involved. We have a bench where we can go and spend time, and to me, we don't, as always, you feel guilty because you can't spend enough time there. You might go weeks or even a month and you haven't been able to go and visit.
Sure.
But you know that place is there. And I know if I'm having a horrendous day, I can just jump in the car and go. And on occasions I have, in all sorts of weather. And actually that's really cathartic, having that place to go. At Christmas, we go and put a little decoration in the tree that's by his bench. It's little things like that that just help to, it's my way of saying his name on the occasions and anniversaries that we will have. I know that that's going to happen always as well. I know that, for example, I should have applied for a school place for Reuben for next September, and that I am going to struggle immensely next September. And I will probably do something to honour or acknowledge him, or even if it's just express my hopes and my dreams for him, you know, because those rituals, and I use that word, it's not a word I use very often, cathartic, but those rituals are cathartic for me. And they're my way of letting my children know they had a big brother, and that's why they're so special. And they're a way of me and my husband sharing our grief almost without having to talk about it, because sometimes in the chaos of life, you don't have time to talk about it. You've got other things going. So, you know, I'll write a Christmas card to Reuben, and quite often I'll give him a nudge and say, go on, write a Christmas card to him. Or I know that will be helpful for him. And actually, by us both having a card to read, we swap the cards, and I'll read his and he'll read mine. And that's actually an insight into each other's grief as well, which I think
I think it's really important. And I've not heard those things before. I've heard some of them, but not all of them, and I just think it's amazing the way that you are turning to these acts of remembrance, the bench, the writing of the cards, the including, you know, your two other adorable children, the way that you swap cards and read each other's cards, because as you say, that is an insight to how you or your husband are grieving at the moment.
You as well about going back to this saying their name. Isn't it funny how sometimes the people closest to you and who you expect to do the right things struggle or do wrongly? There's two people in particular who are close friends, well, one closer than the other, and they do little things that are huge. And a couple of Christmases in a row, I've had a Christmas decoration in the post of a girl I went to university with Reuben's name on, and then Jacob's. And I was pregnant with me. It just said Baby Williamson on. And
lovely.
Yeah, and there's another lady, a family friend, who lives abroad, and she'll send me pictures where she's wrote Reuben's name in the snow, or she's did pebbles and left Reuben's name somewhere beautiful. Or she's gone to a church and lit a candle and she's
sent you for, gosh, Sarah.
And those things make my life.
Because that's huge.
They are. They're huge but tiny little acts.
Yes, but it's profound in it's huge in its profoundness. Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Gosh. That's amazing. Okay, so we've touched on that. Isolation and grief, that was another sort of heading I gave you. Extremely common when we lose somebody. Again, I'm only speculating, but one could assume it's possibly even more of a sense of isolation when it's a child, or when you've been pregnant and you go into the delivery suite, etc., and then where's the baby? So maybe that, I don't know, it's not my truth, it's not my journey, it's not my experience, but I think isolation for any bereavement is massive, but possibly more in that sense. So how did it impact upon you? Because you've acknowledged that was something you struggled with, or you wished to do.
I think isolation for me to start with, I needed to do it. I kind of buried myself in me and Pete, and that was us getting through grief for a couple of months. And then it was me. He had to go back to work, and I had my time on my own. And I needed that to work through my feelings and who I was and what was going on and what I wanted. And then it became quite clear from a few social interactions that we were the elephants in the room and very much the odd one out in society. And the sad thing is the statistic of 1 in 4 with baby loss means that I'm really not the odd one out.
No.
But I really, really feel like it. I feel like it within my family. I feel like it when we go to events. And a couple of occasions that happened quite soon after losing Reuben made me think, yeah, at the moment I'm not ready to be around everybody. The problem is once you become comfortable with your space, it's very easy to just stay there.
Yeah, I get that.
And you then, it almost becomes more awkward when you try to reintegrate yourself, because people are like, well, where have you been? And you feel like you have to explain it to them, which you shouldn't have to. And it almost is a catch-22. You try to get back into society in the real world, but you can't, because you put this divide up and this barrier up. It's really difficult. But I think for me, isolation helped give me the space that I needed. And it still does serve as protection in some way. If
I think so.
Yeah, I just can say no thank you. And I did. I very quickly had to learn to say no thank you, or I don't want. Or,
good.
Yeah.
Good. Because saying no is actually really hard, and a lot of us struggle with that. And the more that we are a people pleaser, the more challenging that is. But I think it's probably really natural. It would be for me. I'm thinking, I don't know this, but I'm thinking, if I suffered a really devastating close loss, that I would probably isolate, because I think one needs to withdraw, because you need to protect your energy and your boundaries. And
one of the big when I spoke to people that have lost babies, one of the things that struck me, and it's completely true, and I never thought it, was as soon as you leave that hospital, all you see is pregnant people, or all you see is babies. And that's hard, because it's a constant reminder. And the isolation that I feel now is, so even though I've had 2 babies, I've not had another newborn baby other than my own. And for me, that's a big step. And because of that, I perhaps would choose to remove myself from certain situations, because how can I can't begin to process how they would make me feel until I'm in that situation. And it's hard, because you see pregnant people everywhere you go.
You're right.
It's not just about even pregnant people. That I know, when we've seen, up until the fact that I had a girl, if I and I was just with Jacob, and I'd see another family where it was 2 boys, and I'd just be like, well, I should have 2 boys. And I would walk to the other side of the road, perhaps, because it was just a sudden
reminder, a very physical reminder of what you didn't have that you should have had. And I can hear what you're saying there, and I think you're right that wherever you look, when you come out from the hospital, there's babies everywhere, or there's pregnant women everywhere, or there's babies in pushchairs, or toddlers, and it just hits you, I suppose, like a train crash at 100 miles an hour, and you're in shock, and you just don't know where to go, where to turn, and it's I would imagine incredibly overwhelming.
But then you just have to
you have to come up for air, so to speak. Bless you. Thank you so much for what you're sharing. Okay, another point: how do you support someone who is grieving? So I've written this because I get asked this myself, and I have my answers and stuff, but it's interesting to know what you think from the point of view of somebody who's suffered a devastating loss with the death of dear Reuben. So what do you think? Maybe it's easy to say what's not being helpful. So what are the unhelpful things people have said or done? Maybe that's the easiest.
Yeah, there's been lots of unhelpful things. And one of our sessions we touched on that, and I know you were amazed at the list I reeled off.
Yes.
Unhelpful comments that actually take people back, because they're like, how could somebody say? And I know that one of the things I said to you is that the phrase that always gets used is "at least" at the start of a sentence. And I just want to turn around and scream, like, there is no "at least." I've lost my baby.
At least. There's absolutely no "at least."
And
oh, God.
no, and this is it. And because obviously I'd got pregnant and I'd had a baby and delivered him, and that was lovely. And people would say, well, at least you know you can have a baby, or at least you know you can get pregnant, or at least I had people, and someone who had had a stillbirth, which I can't imagine, had kind of said, well, at least you got to give birth to a baby. And yes, I feel eternally grateful. I got to give birth to my little boy, and everything was wonderful. And he was alive, and I have no bad memories, despite it being early, of my delivery of him. No bad memories, and I hold on to that dearly.
Yes.
But there's been all sorts of unhelpful things, and people saying, "Oh, you're so strong, you're so brave," and I just want to slap them, because I'm not brave and I'm not strong. I'm just dealing with what I've been given.
You have no choice. You have no choice.
And the thing is, when somebody says you're brave or you're strong, they're seeing this.
Yeah, they're seeing the mask.
They're not seeing who I am, and that I'm falling apart inside.
Yes.
So when they say, "Oh, you're so brave," it actually is quite patronizing to say you're so. There's the well wishers have kind of said, you know, it happened for a reason, or something meaningful will come out of it. And
how do you cope with that? How do you cope? I do not know how. Is the word cope? I don't know. I cannot imagine any of the things you said horrify me. Absolutely horrify me. And they did in the session. When you did see me go, like this in the session, I was just horrified. But I do not understand how somebody could say the words that they said to you. I can't comprehend that. And I cannot imagine how it would feel. I think I would feel, do you not understand what's just happened to me? Can you not imagine that my world, I feel like, I don't know, I've been run over 20 times by a bullet train or something. Can I not get you to understand how this might feel? Because your words, they don't compute with my experience or my pain.
It's like a little pat on, oh, it happened for a reason.
Yes.
And the thing is, I mean, I perhaps am a little exception to other people that might have been said to, because I am quite reflective, and I'm not religious, but I might see some purpose in things. And I know for a fact that because of losing Reuben, I'm a different parent. And I am different with my children now, and life became different. You know, I didn't work, I go back to work the same as so me as a teacher became different, and the way I taught and the way I spoke to people became different. So a lot of good has come out of losing Reuben, and I almost feel guilty saying that, because of course I'd rather the good didn't come out of him, of course. And here, but a lot of good has come out of him, being involved with charity, having 2 subsequent children, which perhaps I wouldn't have done. I say forever that Jacob is my rainbow baby. He's hugely special. He kept us on his toes through his pregnancy and delivery as well, so he is hugely special. I possibly stopped it too. So actually, he's just as importantly special to me, because they're both because of him, so they are special. So I do understand when some people say something will come up, something meaningful will come out of it, because huge things have, but there's a time and a place to say that.
I was going to say, isn't it timing? Because if somebody says that to you instantly, that would really get the shackles up.
Yeah, and I actually think perhaps it's not somebody else's place to say that. It's my place to say that, or the griever's place to say that, because it's up to us to decide whether something's going to come out of our grief.
Yes.
Because it's my grief, it's my experience, and it's my loss. So it's down to me if something good comes out of it.
Absolutely.
If I want to wallow and I want that to consume me, it will, because it's my grief. But if I want to go and do something with it, or I don't know, grow with it, then I will, because it's my grief. So I think, just think about what you're saying.
Yes.
It's really hard.
For anybody who's listening, please do think about what you're saying, because so many of the things that people do say, and off the top of my head, and again, I know that we've discussed this in the program, but there's those myths that people say around grief, and one of them is just keep yourself busy. Another one is just give it time, or time heals. And the other one is don't feel sad or don't feel bad. And I think, and then there's 5 or 6, and I think just those 3, they just highlight how, I think it's intergenerational, and I think it's a societal kind of issue, but we really need to take stock of what we say when somebody is struggling with a loss, be it bereavement or otherwise, because the impact of our language can go one way or the other. And I forget who said it. I forget who said this, but I think, is it Angelo? And I think what she said was, we may forget what people have said to us, the actual words, but we never forget the way their words made us feel. I think that's so true. And so when you're meeting somebody or you're greeting somebody and they have suffered a loss, you need to think about your language. You really do.
And it's the age-old thing as well of TripAdvisor reviews. A positive review, people don't pay attention to a positive review, do they? But a negative review, everybody does.
Yes.
And this is it. I may not remember all the good things or the kind things they've done or said, because what's huge and takes over is all of the list of the negative things or the ill thought out things people have said, because the way they made me feel about my grief was that I was the odd one out, and I was the one making life awkward, and I was the one that needed to deal with this and become better and get through my grief quickly so that life could go back to normal. Please
grieve quicker, because you're making me feel awkward. I just want to say something there to add to that. One wonderful client, and I see so many lovely people, her son died, and I can remember her saying to me that some other person that she sought help from, it wasn't myself, it was somebody else before me, and this person said to her, how does it feel now you're no longer a mother? Well, I remember me saying that. What? I'm speechless. How can you possibly think that, let alone say it? You're a mother always, you're a father always. And I just can't believe that could be said, but it was. So these things, as you know, they can make me quite angry and frustrated, because I just think we need to wake up and we need to use language appropriately and sympathetically, and we just need to change this. Okay, so I'm aware of time for you, but one of the other things that you talked about, and thank you for giving me your time, is keeping busy. And you've said here that you constantly wanted the feeling of order and control. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, it's something I think still struggling with. This feeling of everything being okay, or everything being organized, or everything being ready. And that's the reason I'm struggling with it, is in part because I'm a mum to young children. So that's natural when you're a mum of young children. I think the whole let's get ready for the next day the night before and all of that, that's natural. But on top of that, I'm dealing with the feelings of the lack of control I felt. And again, I feel like I've dealt with it in some ways in a really good way, because I had to protect myself. The feeling of being in control with baby loss in particular, you have to really try and come to terms with, and I've said this to lots of people, you have to try and come to terms with really early on the fact that you had no control. Because of course I had no control over the fact that I went into early labour. I cannot control that. I had no control over any of the things that happened to Reuben whilst he was alive for 2 days. I had no control over those things or those decisions. If I did, obviously I'd have done something differently, but I had no control. And that's hard as people to realise, because we like to be in control. We like to have order. We like to know what's going on. And I was really that as a person. I think partly as a teacher, because I have to be organised. I have to be in control.
I was a teacher in a previous life. I know all about being organised.
No, wrong. You have to think on your feet, and you have to fix them there and then.
Yes, you do.
If the technology breaks, you jump in and you pull out work. And all of a sudden, wow, I had no control over the things that had happened. And that was huge. And then I had to build myself up again. And that was hard, but I thankfully acknowledged very early on I had no control. That helped me in both pregnancies with Jacob and Hattie, because when I was having a difficult day, like emotionally, with the grief of being pregnant and the panic and fear that things could go wrong again, I let myself have that worry and that panic and fear. And then, okay, Sarah, you have no control over this. So anything I do, I couldn't change the outcome of that pregnancy, other than the things, obviously. So with my grief and my pregnancies and whatever, actually I've done quite well with the control. I think it's in my day-to-day life I really struggle. I want order around me. I want I'm sat here now, and in the corner of my eyes I haven't
see something.
Sanitized to bedtime. And
oh, bless you.
You know, I'm one of those people that does play on my mind, and I've kind of had to learn to let go of that as a mum, but also as a griever, because if I didn't start to let go of those things, which I really struggle with, I would lose my mind completely. I think I would get consumed by, and also not enjoy life. I would get consumed trying to make
I hear exactly what you're saying there, and I think I kind of understand why it's the way it is, with the control and the need for it and order. But you're right. If you can step back and just try to learn to let some of it go, maybe not all of it, but some of it. Otherwise, you will be consumed, and you'll always be chasing your tail. You'll always be on that wheel of never getting off. And you owe it to yourself, your mental health, your physical health, you know, just life in general, by trying to let that go. But it is a different mindset. So it doesn't happen just like that. You know, you need to sort of work on it. And also, if you've always been a very organized person, naturally, then it's learning to change that way. And if you've been that way for 20, 30 years, as I say, it's no overnight fix. So I get that. Okay, this has just been fantastic. Before we finish, and thank you so much for coming on with me, is I know that you started, and I think I've got it correct, with your friend Laura, the unexpected parenthood. Now, would you like to just briefly talk about that and how it then went sideways or evolved into SAMS?
Yeah, so I felt isolated and completely alone in my grief, and I felt that in this little town of Hereford that surely I couldn't be the only one that lost a baby. And I just put some random message out on Facebook and said who I am and what had happened to me, and said this would be my little boy's due date. On this date, I'm going to go and have a coffee somewhere, and if anybody would like to join me, then please do. And you came, didn't you?
I came. I was sat with you. Yes, I did.
Like, oh, like I'm not alone. And it was exhausting. I literally went and crashed and burned that night. But the one person that day, Laura, oh my goodness, she's wonderful. Smile that beamed forever. And she turned up. I've never met her before, and she thrust her 6-month-old baby into my arms. And in subsequent conversations, she's kind of gone, oh, should I have done that? And I said, no, do it, because it showed me who she was as a person.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, and she will be a lifelong friend, because she has helped me immensely. And I think she set up the Born Sleeping Appeal in Hereford after so she sadly lost Penny, her daughter was stillborn. And she'd set that up, and coming to the coffee and whatever made her like, we need to do more. So we decided to set up Unexpected Parenthood, and we advertised and set up twice monthly meetings, and that was really good. And then we realized, we need to do more, and we need to be more official, and we need some backing. And in this time, the bereavement suites and everything, I'd got on board with the Born Sleeping Appeal. We'd set up, so now at the hospital we have a bereavement suite and counselling rooms, and services for bereaved parents have improved immensely there. And because of that, myself and Laura met other parents, mums in particular, who had also lost babies. And we got together and decided, let's do something. And because of that, Hereford Sands has begun. Obviously, we were delayed because of the pandemic, and I hate that I haven't been as involved as I'd like to have been because of maternity leaves. But we are set up as a support group in Hereford, running monthly meetings, and that's a national charity, Sands. And yes, it's supporting stillborns and neonatal deaths, but actually any type of baby loss, anyone that's lost a baby, a mum, a dad, a auntie and uncle, a grandparent is welcome to come to our meetings. And I'm really proud and pleased that finally we have something like that in Hereford.
Yes,
we want to
sadly it's so needed, as you say, 1 in 4. And good on you and Laura for as you say, she did the what was it called? Born Sleeping Appeal at the hospital, which I remember. I think I donated towards that, and they were after some sort of blankets or gowns or something, and I think I was going to make that. So I remember that, and that was something that the Hereford Times pushed.
Yeah, that appeal is constantly going, because it needs to, because baby loss isn't just going to go away.
No, sadly it's not. And so that was amazing that she did that. And then she came along to the day that he was due to be born, as you say, dear Reuben. And that was when I met you there as well. And then the Unexpected Parenthood, and then the Hereford branch of Sands. So phenomenal journey already, and to be involved in these charities. Could you just share with people a Facebook page or a website so that people can reach out to you or whoever?
Yeah, so nationally, they can just go onto Sands and get in touch with us that way, because they can put this in with you in touch with support groups. On Facebook, literally just Hereford Sands, and there's you can direct message us through there, and meetings are monthly. We just had our meeting last week, so it's going to be the middle of December, and off the top of my head I can't remember the date.
We'll go with the 15th.
We will publicise that date.
Wonderful.
On our link, so that people can come along if they need to. but we're always there as so I haven't yet begun my training. Laura's a trained befriender. We have another couple of mums that have gone through their befriender training. So SANs train us to help guide people through grief, but we're also there as members as well. So some meetings I might go with just a volunteer hat on. Other times I might just go as a parent because I need that meeting.
Of course. Yeah, get it.
And they're very open and relaxed, the meetings, but then we can also offer one-to-one support as well. So contacting through email is just the best way.
That's just wonderful. And I just want to finish on thanking you so much for your time, your personal story. You've shared so much. And as this is my first conversation around grief that's going to go out for the National Grief Awareness Week, which is the 2nd to the 8th of December, on that Wednesday the 8th at 6 o'clock, I have got so many buildings off the top of my head. It's the county hospital, the cathedral, the courtyard, the town hall, the butter market, the black and white house. They're all going to light up in orange this year at 6 o'clock on that Wednesday. I'm also inviting anybody who's suffered a loss to light a candle if they wish at that time. I've also got local singer Amy Tommy, maybe her brother as well, I think, to sing It Could Be I Can Get By With a Little Help from My Friends. I think that's the one we're going for. So that should be a really moving event, and I'll try and get that posted. And also on the Saturday, and I think it's the 4th, I'm inviting anybody to come for a coffee and a chat in the courtyard. Completely free, just come and chat to me if you're struggling. I believe they've got pantomimes and the snow cream and Jack and the Beanstalk on, so they told me it's better if people come and meet me at 12, because gone 1 it's going to be chaos. And also on the Sunday, I'm going to be at the duck pond at 3 o'clock. If anybody wants to walk in the park with me, talk or not talk, for anybody, and that goes out of course to anybody who's struggling with baby loss as well. So I just want you to know that you're more than welcome to come to any of those, and you can share it with anybody you think may like to take me up on that.
No, so, thank you, Dawn.
Thank you so much.
You know, through our efforts as Hereford SANs, but also my personal efforts, what we try to do through Baby Loss Awareness Week.
Yeah,
I think some people are skeptics about these days or awareness weeks, aren't they?
They are. They are. I got a lot of bad press last time.
Yeah, and people are skeptics, but they're the people that don't need it. They're the people that haven't yet been in the unfortunate position to need that.
No.
So what you're doing and what other people are doing is actually giving people an outlet for their grief, and there's no better thing that we can do than let people express their grief.
Absolutely. And what you and Laura are doing, and other people and myself and people who work with people who are bereaved or grieving any loss, it's that safe, private, confidential, non-judgmental space. And that is a gift. And that is a gift. So I applaud you for all you're doing with that. I think you're incredible. You know, I think you're incredible. And thank you so much for your time this evening. And I really hope I get to see you soon.
You will. You will. Thank you, Dawn.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.